first one. All right, Kevin, this is part five, and we're changing things up for the people that are going to watch this, as you know, with our ideas that we've brought together. And we're going to go through, I guess this would be like a photo analysis, is the best way to call it, of photos you personally took of your time in Iraq. Now,
Yeah.
out of curiosity, because you do six deployments to Iraq, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, it's total. No, I did three involving Iraq. Yeah.
Okay, three involving Iraq then. Okay, making sure I had that right. So of the three in Iraq, the one in Haiti, the other two here, go ahead and fill me in. MEU
Oh,
for non.
they were non-combat deployments.
So
So
with both, with all, even with all six deployments, how many photographs do you think you took in the entire span here that we're thinking? Just
oh
deployment.
man, millions. No, I would say like a really conservative estimate would be probably near 750,000 probably. And
Wow.
that's not necessarily the ones I used. As I said before on a patrol, I would take 120 photos and I would use 70 of them. But those 120 photos, that's not what I actually took. Those were the good photos. Overall, I could have taken 200 photos, 300 photos, but I selected 120 of them that were good, and then I would narrow it down to the ones that I wanted to submit that had the most information in them, that were the composed the best, et cetera, et cetera.
So just out of curiosity, before we start looking at some of the photographs, for these photographs that you select and pass up, for the ones that weren't selected, do they stay on a hard drive? Do they get deleted? Do these photographs end up in National Archives right now?
A lot of the ones, the extra ones. So if I took 300 photos, I would only keep 120, and I would send up maybe 60 or 70. Okay, that's a really good question. Um, the extra ones would typically get deleted because they wouldn't have any information in them. They were just a blurry exposure. It was blown out. The light was wrong. I didn't capture what I was looking for. It's, any other reason. The 120. I'll say the 60 or 70, I would submit whether it was to the S2 or to whoever, whatever I was taking the photos for. The 120 would be archived. Because everything was digital, we had external hard drives that would hook up to our SIPR computers, and we had external hard drives that would hook up to NIPR computers, and you had to have them labeled, yeah, as each respectively, and you couldn't mix them. So whenever we would use NIPR hard drives, which is unsecured, it could have anything that was declassified. But whenever we used our SIPR hard drives, the secured hard drives, it would have any kind of sensitive or classified or higher on it. All of that stuff was handled appropriately by people with the appropriate clearances. So if you didn't have a clearance for whatever reason, you weren't able to handle that stuff. It's a big deal if you do.
Dang, that is actually really cool to think about the big deal that you have there. Has it ever crossed your mind what is sitting in National Archives, that has your name attached to it?
So much. The things that I would put up to Intel were mostly faces, um, conversations that I would record, uh, different, if something stood out to me on a typical patrol, I would take photos of it. If we took any kind of detainees or we questioned anyone, anytime that we met with the village elders and our command would come out and sit with them and have coffee, I would be sitting in the background with my camera hanging around my neck, but down here, and no one would think I'm taking photos because I'm not holding it up. So I'm just sitting there, click, 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 just taking photos of anything and everything, all of their faces close up, profiles, as forward as I can. Got pretty good at it, believe it or not. So it's a ton of that crap. On top of that, it's a ton of promotion ceremonies, change of commands, just unit runs, just because a lot of the stuff we do when we're in the rear, when we're not deployed, say at Camp Lejeune or at Camp Pendleton, it's a lot of busy work. You know, we find things to document and keep our skills sharpened. So we will go to every single ceremony, whether it's a promotion or an award or even sometimes PT. Like I used to go because I worked on Camp Delmar on Camp Pendleton, which is on the beach. Amazing, by the way. Like I would go out for a cigarette and there's the ocean, you know. I would be like, "Hey Gunny, I'm gonna go practice my photo skills, just walk around camp." And I would just go down to the beach and bum around, take photos of birds and shit. Me and my friends. We would find stuff to do to keep ourselves sharpened. And you know how I explained, like there was the 6 months of downtime, 6 months of training, 7 months of deploy. That would be in the downtime. That wasn't stuff you could do while there was active training going on. But sometimes if we were keeping Gunny happy, we would be able to sneak away and do stuff like that. So, a lot of that kind of stuff was what you would find in the archives. A lot of humanitarian work, handing out food, handing out water, working on buildings, construction, fixing water treatment facilities, power plants. I documented all kinds of stuff. So I would say 80% of my work was that kind of stuff. So in the archives, that's what you're going to find. The juicy stuff, is there as well, but the majority of it isn't from combat or reconnaissance photos or anything like that. The majority of what I did in the military was just, I don't want to call it wasting time, but it was just day-to-day life. That's exactly what it was. I recorded day-to-day life when I was in the rear, and we submitted all of that as well. So all of it's archived, all of it has been submitted up. So they have every single promotion ceremony that I've ever photographed, every single change of command that I've photographed, passing reviews. My gunnery sergeant graduated from the staff NCO course, or the gunnery sergeant course, or whatever it was called back then. So I went to, and I photographed that. Yeah, it was a lot of stuff you're gonna find in there if you can even access it. I don't even, I used to go on to JCCC, the Joint Combat Camera Center's website, and you could see all of it. But JCCC, to my understanding, closed down, and it's something else entirely now. And I don't know exactly how to access it. And that's why the selection that I've given you, I think it's 36912. It's 14 photos, and it's really, I mean, it's so limited. I wish I had so much more to give you. And then, there's a few from Haiti, a few from Iraq in here, and then like a reconnaissance photo of a ship I took. Um, it's really limited. So maybe I'll be able to find more for you eventually, or maybe you'll be able to find it for me.
Maybe we'll see what kind of
Yeah.
digging we can do. But without further ado, I was going to bring up first photograph here to kind of talk through the process of what's happening, what is photographed, and the choice here. Hopefully this will work out like that. So, bam. Photograph number one, that is the first one there in the drive. If we've got these Marines, looks like they're pulling security. Some kind of, is that a Humvee, I assume, right here?
Yeah, that's the Humvee back there. That was our platoon commander in the door there on the radio. He was calling in that I think we had taken contact, and yeah, we were posting security up. We were on a patrol, semi-mounted patrol, pushing through, and this was hit. I'm pretty sure this was in hit. It may have been in Haditha. I don't have the captions handy, so I can't really look at it. I took so many photos. I never expected this one to go anywhere, but this is one of the photos I took, and it went out, and it became semi-famous. A lot of people saw this, and it made its rounds. And that guy, it looks like he's yelling something, but he's actually yawning. We had been up for like, I don't know, like 36 hours at this point. Everyone you see in this photo is exhausted. There's a little guy behind his rifle there. I don't know if you can see. He's posted up over there. So we were pushing down the road that you see where the Humvee is. We were headed that way, and we took shots from that road that turns right. And we just posted up like this. We sat there for about 15 minutes. Nothing else happened. We didn't see anything. We didn't see where the shots came from, and we moved on. But I submitted my photos, and this one actually made it in some magazines. I think it was in a newspaper. This photo made it around. A lot of people saw this photo. And I don't know why the hell it says U.S. Army. Corporal Kevin.
I was about to ask.
That happened a lot. Like I would put my stuff up and, whatever civilian, media company that would get it, they wouldn't know the difference between an Army or a Marine Corps. They would just see, U.S. military photo and whatever information they got, and in their mind, Army military. It's the same. That's why this happens. I was definitely in the Marine Corps. As you can see, that is a Marine. Those were all Marines. All of the stuff I have showed you was Marine Corps. But yeah, this is a great photo. I love this photo looking back on it in retrospect. There's a lot of emotion within me. I mean, maybe not for the average viewer when they look at it. I mean, I guess it's a pretty cool photo to see because all the guns, but for me, it was just like I just remember how exhausted I was. I can see how exhausted each of them were. I can smell myself to this day. I mean, pushing for 30 something hours like that in 110-degree weather, we just stink to high hell. So I can still smell myself. You can see he's got an AT4 on his back. We were in the thick of it, and at this point, I think it was just a failed. Some guys they thought they wanted to fight us. They took a couple shots and then they saw us react and they just pissed off. Honestly, I think that's what it was. So they just kind of disappeared. We sat there for about 15, 20 minutes, called it in. Nothing else came of it. Marked the area and left, or continued our patrol, not left. But yeah, that photo that again, it brings back a lot to me. You see all the trash on the road right there. It's because I mean, at this point during the invasion, there were no trash services. A lot of that rubble you see were buildings, whether we blew them up or they got blown up to set up whatever defensive position or offensive position, because they would set up in that rubble, they would set up their mortar positions and machine gun positions and all kinds of shit. So this is yeah, it brings back a lot of memories to me. It makes me feel a lot of ways about things.
Well, and speaking of that, the emotions you do have with it, to me, it seems like in many ways a mix of personal emotions, a mix of the emotions of this bigger situation and picture that you perhaps have now. But also, I mean, from building off of your emotional standpoint there, when you look at something like this, do you get that smell as well, not just of yourself, but of what the city smelt like? Does
Oh
that
yeah, yeah. I
something?
smell it right now looking at it. Oh yeah, it's always there. It's funny when I pulled out that my kit bag and I was pulling out all my gear, I smelled it right away. And I washed most of that stuff. The boots I didn't wash, but a lot of that stuff's been cleaned over and over, but it all still smells. And it takes me right back every single time. When I see this photo, I can smell that trash, I can smell this dirt, I can smell the smoke in the air. I can smell every single thing in this photo. I feel it too. I can feel the sand on my face and the grime on my skin. I can feel, oh yeah, I mean, it's pretty powerful looking at it. I remember this moment taking this photo as well.
So,
Um,
speaking of that and the power of a photograph, that really does put it into a perspective of where people say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And here we have you not even just describing what you see, but the emotions behind it, but also the feeling that you get. That's a reality, not just for you, but I assume, and I don't even assume, believe for many Marines or Army or any veteran of the GWAT era, when they see photographs that they knew they were part of the operation or there, it all comes back in many ways.
yeah, absolutely. As you said, the kind of when you ask, it's funny you asked about the smell. I try not to look at a lot of photos from Haiti. I have these that I uploaded here. I think they're ones we've already looked at. But I saw a lot more when I was on there, and it was hard to see them because I could smell the photo or the things in the photo. I could smell the surroundings, and I could hear the people. I can really feel this stuff, and it's a big reason I'm not a photographer to this day. I've been a photographer since I was 8 years old. And it's just not something, like I said, man, I told you earlier when we were talking before you turned the recording on, I never wanted to be a mechanical engineer. I never wanted to be a mechanic. I never wanted to do any of the things that I do. I wanted to be a photographer, and that was taken kind of from me in a lot of ways. And it's really unfortunate because what you're seeing, this is my life. This is the culmination of my being, but it also is what kind of ruined and burned me out. And as far as an artist goes, I'm not one anymore because of this right here.
It's I don't know the correct English words for it. It's like I told you last time, and the people that will see this, me and oration or just knowledge of words, sometimes it comes and goes. But that's sad to me, man. Like, my passion's history. I love this shit. Talking to you, getting into your background, opening my eyes to a version of Iraq that I've never known about because I wasn't there or haven't read about it. And taking that deep dive. And that I love doing this with you and the other veterans I work with. This has been a blast. But knowing, for you, your passion was snuffed out. It was not in a positive way. It's not something you lost interest in just because you got bored of it. It was snuffed out. Um,
Same with being a Marine. I wanted to retire. I wanted to retire at 20 years. I did 10 and a half. And then I went to Wounded War. I was at Wounded Warrior Battalion for a year and a half, and then I was forcefully retired. I didn't decide to retire. It wasn't my choice. They retired me. So my career was cut short. My art was cut short. My passion and being a photographer was kind of cut short. So yeah, it really bums. I mean, I hate to be all super, sad and morose about it, but it's just it really does kind of suck, and it affected me in ways that I didn't think it would. Putting a camera to my face now, I could take photos with my phone all day long. And I actually take some great photos because I go up to LA all the time and I take photos of the buildings covered in graffiti and shit. I take some pretty decent photos, but putting an actual SLR to my face, which I have a really nice one, I just can't use it. It's freaky to me. All those smells come back, all those sounds come back, all those people come back. I'm very aware of all of it very suddenly. So yeah.
it takes the idea of haunting to a whole new level in that nature in many
Yeah.
ways when you think about that. But also at the same time, the photographs that I've looked through and what you've been able to share with me, they're incredibly interesting, but it also tells a bit about you as the photographer. And it's kind of like this next photograph that we are gonna pull up here and take a analysis in there. I think this is showing the right way I want it to. Yeah. Looks like we have a cache that has been uncovered. And if I'm gonna take a guess, I assume that's what, 81, 82s,
Yeah,
or
those are
this.
81 millimeter mortars. Yep. Every single one of them. I don't know what country those are from. Probably Russia. They're definitely not UN. Yeah, we would find crap like this constantly. I mean, I sent you a couple more that were similar. This and every single one of those are different caches. This was typical. So, it looks like it's cut off, but at the very base of the photo, that stick of C4 that's laying on the top, it completes and then that's the end. And then it goes all the way down to the other end, what looks like probably 20 to 30 feet, 25 feet maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they were stacked. You can see that there's layers of those. They were probably stacked three deep. Whatever EOD decided or the engineers decided wasn't appropriate because when you're exploding ordnance in such a manner, you want to make sure that it all goes off. You don't want to leave UXO unexploded ordnance out there. So they're not going to stack them four deep and hope that they all just go off. So they're going to make sure there may have been that those lines of C4 sticks mortars and then another line of C4 sticks under there. I don't know their methods. I don't know how they did it, but I remember I mean, I saw hundreds of this right here. I saw this all the time. It was pretty regular, especially we did Operation River Sweep 1, 2, and 3. And every single time we did River Sweep 1, I believe was like Haditha to Barwana or something like that. And then we went Barwana to Hit, and then we went Hit to whatever. I mean, we basically followed the Euphrates. Obviously it doesn't go in all of those places, but it's kind of in there. And we just dug these up. We had engineers with metal detectors, and they just found all of this shit everywhere. And it would be rifles, it would be you name it. We would find cars. in people's houses because we would check all of the homes along the river as well, and we would find cars that were set up to be VB IEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs, and we would blow them in place. Unfortunately, usually in the driveway of the house that we found them, and it would be parked right up against the house. We're not going to move it. Yeah, like we don't want it to exist and just leave it. So we blow it the hell up right then and there. And I remember one instance. We moved back. The engineers wired it all up. It was a car parked next to a house in a palm grove. And they wired it all up. I'll never forget this house. It was really strange because I went upstairs and while we were searching it, and there was no one there. And we found what I assume was a little girl's bedroom because there was Titanic, the movie Titanic, cutouts from magazines all over the walls. I mean, everywhere. There was Leo and Kate, just everywhere. I mean, they were kissing here and they were holding each other here. And it was sad to me because I don't know if they were a family that was held hostage by someone, and they forced them to use their vehicle. I don't know their whole story, but I assume that this little girl who's obsessed with Titanic wasn't from a family that had ties with the Mujahideen. But we blew the hell out of that car anyway, and it definitely probably destroyed the house. We didn't go back over there. The engineers did to make sure everything was gone, but I didn't go back over there. I took a video of it, and I remember taking the video from like 700 yards out. And when the detonation went off, the hood of the car flew like, I mean, probably 1,000 yards up into the sky, just flipping like that. It was the craziest thing, and then just came back down. And again, I've seen 100 of these, and then we've blown up 100 of these, and it was the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen every time, because just seeing those explosions and the power behind them as an engineer, it's just the science behind it. It's astounding, and just seeing the energy created by these explosions and what it does. It was beautiful, and it's in a scary kind of way. But all of this stuff that you see in this photo was buried and saved to kill me. So there was a lot of like it was kind of poetic to blow it up too. It felt good to rid the world of all of this bullshit.
Hell yeah. First of all, I stand by that statement. Secondly, I hope that not I have no claim to this, but I hope the 0341s out there appreciate me recognizing those mortar rounds. That's not bad
Yeah,
for a guy
yeah.
like me. I'm proud of that
They'll
myself.
let you get your fins. You okay?
Um, but when we're looking at these photographs, and there's also this one too, which I love this one. It's the close up, because I was analyzing this and I'm trying to figure out what the hell are these things right here, these little cylinders
Those are
that
granades.
okay.
Yeah, there's a little screw-on handle that goes to them that once you screw it in, I'm pretty sure it actually hits like a firing pin within it, and then you toss it. So there were all kinds of grenades from all kinds of countries. This isn't even the same ordnance. This is a different cache
That's crazy.
altogether, and you can see there's some det cord right there at the top. Yeah, I mean, we would find the shit was constant. It was like all the time. So yeah, every single one of those is a grenade of some sort. I can't tell you where they're from. Somewhere in Asia, maybe somewhere in Eastern Europe, probably.
Well,
They fought us with all kinds of weird shit. They had when in World War II, excuse me, when Germany moved through the Middle East, they built bunkers and they buried a lot of stuff. So we would find them fighting us with Nazi weapons that they dug out. I mean, they would find this shit and be like, "Oh, cool," and just come at us with these like MG 42s and shit. So, so I mean, it's crazy. It
well,
was absolutely nuts.
and for people that perhaps that were not there during the GY era, or think that Kevin is full of it, he's not. And I don't just say that because he's a friend of mine and I'm interviewing. You can look up videos of like all of Afghanistan and photographs or anything that has happened in the Middle East in the last 5 or 6 years, and you will find guys still slinging MG 42s out there in the middle of
Like it's cool.
combat.
But
Like,
they have Uzis and shit, Israeli made Uzis also, and then they have these Romanian made AKs, and it just blew me away because they have stuff from wherever they can get it, and then they find stuff that's been buried there because this place has been at war for thousands of years. Mesopotamia itself has just always been a war zone.
To prove a point, side interjection, yes, Mesopotamia has always been a war zone. I've actually been teaching that to my students here recently, of the history there, where you've got a lot of this world history, and a lot of the early human history, but also the violence in this part of the world. But for my viewers or whoever's going to watch this that doubt this, here's a photograph of a grunt in Fallujah, 2004, clearing a building
The
with a
old
papa shotgun. That's right.
PPA. Yeah, I wish I could have carried one of those because those are really just amazing little guns.
Oh man,
They
dude.
are. Old Soviet, man. Those are amazing. We found some crazy stuff. I remember when I was with LAR, I was only with first LAR for a little bit. I was with second LAR for a long time, but I only attached to first for a couple operations. But when I was with them, one of them had something similar. I can't remember what it was. Some sort of submachine gun, but I can't recall exactly what it was. But he had only one magazine for it. And every now and then we would just be riding in LAV and we would just hear poof. And it's like, what the hell was that? And he'd be up there like, so we would find this weird stuff. I mean, you see it in that photo with all of those old, whatever canister grenades that are there. Those mortars, they're covered in rust, and this was in 2005. If you had buried those mortars in 2005 and they were brand new, they would look like that by now. They wouldn't even look that bad by now. I don't know how long they've had these. These probably weren't even in the original hole they were buried in. They had been dug up and moved so many times to keep whatever military they were fighting from finding them, whether it was us or whoever was there before us.
So thinking of like these caches, and the safety radius when you're detonating them. So like either of those photographs, what is the recommended range you need to be in a safe distance to not be hit by shrapnel?
For me, it was as far as the engineers told me. If, a lot of this stuff, because that we were finding so much of it, usually when we would find IEDs and stuff like that, we would call EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, and they would come and either, disable it or detonate it in place or whatever. But this stuff was typically combat engineers. The combat engineers would come out with their metal detectors. They would find this stuff. They would wire it up. They would blow it in place. So whatever they told me, I would sit with them. I would record them and document them wiring all of this stuff up. I would record and document them pulling the little, the little firing pin, the little detonator. I can't recall what it's called. That you stuff the cord in and I guess it's a fuse. It's a fuse, right? So
Ow.
when they let me pull a bunch of them, I personally blew up a ton of these,
So
and
how does that feel, first of all, to be able to do
oh,
that?
so cool. Because when you pull it, it's not like a little, psh, and then the little fuse spews off. It actually sounds like a gunshot when it goes off, and then you run like hell. It's like exhilarating, because you have to make it however far. If you put a 5 minute fuse, you only have 5 minutes to run as fast as you can. And it's not that you're running from the explosion, you're running from fragmentation. You're running from whatever comes from the explosion. You need to get the hell out of there. So that's, I would, again, I can't really tell you the distances. Usually it was anywhere from like 600 to like 1,200 yards, somewhere in there. And we would always get behind a berm. There were a few times where I heard shit whizzing through the trees over our heads after they would blow these things up. But usually they were really good about it. They would do the math and they were really professional and good at their job. So they would find it, blow it up, get rid of it. It's not killing us. Not today.
Not today, no. And you get to watch some badass explosion in the background, I assume, of all the dust and debris just whoosh through an entire area.
Yeah, it's just a big black poof, and then you feel the shockwave.
Oh man, I think
Yeah.
for me, you mentioned the engineer and the science behind it. I've always found the shock wave of explosions fascinating, and
Mhm.
especially with some of the research and stuff that I do, and like teaching that to kids of like it's not the explosion you just have to worry about depending on proximity. You've got to worry about a shock wave and bring science
Absolutely.
into history and how cool that is, but also how terrifying that is too.
Yeah. So I did a lot of bilateral training in different countries, which is we would train with different countries' militaries. I did it in Jordan. and I did it in Kuwait. I did it in a bunch of other countries. Anyway, when you do this bilateral training, we typically, wherever we go, we have our rules and our laws that we follow. But when we're in another sovereign nation, we typically bow to their rules. So if their guys are like, "Hey, this is how we do it," we'll be like, "Okay, we'll do it your way." So these guys have no regulation on how low our helicopters can fly. So I would ride in a CH-46 normally, like any other place in the world, and it would just be this comfy, nice ride. But when we were in I had like Jordan and Kuwait, man, they're like, I mean, they're turning sideways, flying 500 feet off the ground. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I mean, they were nuts and they were pushing the limits on these birds. Like they were really doing what they could do and having fun, like anybody would. I would do the same thing. Like
Fuck yeah.
if you put me on a road in that car that has no speed limit, I'm gone. So they were doing that. Anyway, our EOD guys kind of had the same rules. So talking about stacking up 10 50-gallon drums full of diesel with I mean, tons of explosives within it, and then backing up a half mile in the desert and like nothing out there. And watching the shockwave just slowly come at you, it moves really slowly up until it's right at you, and then it just poof, and just feeling it in the chest, it's so powerful. So yeah, I mean, I really saw some cool stuff. And just as a combat cameraman, I never would have seen that were I an infantryman. Even like if I were admin, if I were supply, if I were whatever, any other job, I would have never had the access to go see this kind of stuff. So I saw so many explosions, so many shock waves, and I would document them as well. I'm hoping I can find some of the videos that I shot
Oh
and
hell
released
yeah.
because I did get a lot. And the Jordanian desert's covered in this it's like moon dust. It's this really fine powdery sand, but there's also it's covered in volcanic rock. So it's these little tiny volcanic rocks about yay big, just littering this powdery poofy sand. So when it would happen, all of the rocks would kind of lift up and the poofy sand would create this really weird mist. It was so cool, just amazing. Again, as an engineer, seeing the energy created by these explosions, and the smoke off of them, 10 50-gallon drums of diesel just blowing up. It was just so neat to see.
Hell yeah, dude. That's like dude, that's a hillbilly's dream come true. You know that.
Absolutely. I did that shit when I was a kid. I would get a mason jar full of gasoline and I would put it with a fuse inside of a bigger mason jar, and I'd put nails and shit in there, and I would put it in a hole, light it and run. And me and my cousins, we'd hide behind trees and stuff, and we'd hear all the nails flying through the, and then so seeing this stuff, hey, I got South Carolina here, man. You know where I'm from. So seeing all this stuff was just a dream for me. It was just like being a kid and I loved it. It you hear me and how excited I get talking about it. It was a break away from everything else that was going on at the time.
Right on, dude.
We would see it. It was cool. We were just a bunch of I mean, the majority of the military is a bunch of poor kids. I mean, we just a bunch of poor hillbillies. That's what most of it is. No matter your ethnicity, no matter your original nationality, we're all poor kids for the majority. So when we would see shit like this, it was so cool, and it's a once in a lifetime experience. When else are you going to see that many mortars go off at one time?
Dude.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a great point. I mean, that's something that I won't get to see unless crazy shit starts happening here in the
Hopefully
United
not. Yeah.
States. And if that's the case, then I hope I'm not there because I don't know what to do. I'm not trained for that. But that's not the point today. The point today, this is this next photograph, which I find incredibly interesting considering you're a Marine, and in the background of this photograph, I see Army guys rocking the
Yep.
Second Infantry Division patch back there. So what's going on in this photograph?
So for this one, inside of that little room right behind where you see the soldier standing in the back of the truck, behind him is that door. That whole building was blown out. I don't know what had hit it. Something big hit it, and it was just completely blown out. So no one had been living there, and they had hid all of these artillery shells. I don't know if those aren't 155s. They look smaller than that. I'm not sure what they are. I have no idea, but they would use those for IEDs. They didn't shoot them at us. They would daisy chain the tip of them would have the fuse inside of it, and they would daisy chain those together, and then
Mm.
hook it to whatever detonator, usually a cell phone. So they would hook it to the ringer. I don't want to. I can't say this kind of stuff online, but they would what they would do is they would chain all of the fuses together with a wire and then connect the end of that wire to the ringer of like some cheap ass Nokia cell phone. So when they would call that cell phone, the ringer would go off and the ringer would send an electric pulse and set off all of those. So that's what I got hit by. It was two 155 artillery shells.
Jesus Christ.
And they're directional rounds. So when they go off forward. And luckily, when they buried them facing outward. So when our vehicle went over, I don't know if you can see me. I'm
I
looking at a
can't.
weird screen.
I'll go
So
ahead
when
and
our vehicle went over, the explosion kind of went out, We were driving this way, and the two 155s were buried in a little land sand bridge over a wadi, and they went off and hit our vehicle kind of at an angle, and it just rocked us really bad. But if they had been buried straight up, that would have been a different story altogether. So anyway, my understanding, and obviously I'm not artillery, I'm not an explosive ordnance guy, I'm not an engineer, combat engineer. I don't understand all of the specifics, but from what I've been told in my research, that's how I understand it. So they are directional for the most part. These that you find in the truck here with these soldiers, the army was doing maneuvers nearby. They had some operation going on their own, and they had no way to document this. They had found it and they needed it sent up to their chain of command. So what they did is they radioed over to whatever unit they found on Blue Force Tracker, which I'm sure you're familiar, Blue Force Tracker, that shitty system. It was amazing at the time. Anyway, so they got over on Blue Force Tracker, found whoever was nearby, asked if they had combat camera, and they sent me over here. So they literally the unit that I was with at the time was like, "Hey, so the army needs you. They need you to go over there." And I was like, I just turned around and I looked, and this is a fucking desert, And I was like, "Over there," and he's just like, "Yeah." There's some staff sergeant. He's like, "Yeah, over there. Just walk that way until you find the army." And I was like, "Are you shitting me right?" Because they just like telling me to walk to my death out in the middle of fucking nowhere. So, he's just like, I'm not kidding. If you just walk that way, you'll find the army. They need you to go over there to take photos. So I walked that way, my dumbass, for like 25 minutes, man. By the time I got there, I was having doubts. And I was just like I was like, okay, I got a bottle of water. I got two MREs. My camelback's full. Like, I'm not going to die, maybe. Like, I got to just make sure I don't get picked up by the wrong people. And then all of a sudden there was the army. And I was just like, oh, cool. So there were like three Bradley tanks. And they were like, yeah, hop in the back. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what I expected sitting in the back of a Bradley, but it's like this box that you're like, you're just sitting in, and there were four of us back there, and any of you Bradley guys are going to know that four people in the back of a Bradley is not comfortable. Four people with combat gear is even worse. And I had my pack and everything. So they put me in the Bradley. We drove for like 15, 20 minutes, and then they were like, "Oh, get out," So I hopped out, and that's where I was this photo that you just pulled up. And they were like, "Hey, we found this shit. We need you to come in here and document it, send it up to your chain of command so they can send it to our chain of command, and we can have all of this, blah, 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 blah." So that's exactly what I did. I got it. I took these photos within 15 minutes. I sat down with my RBGAN satellite, this RBGAN. It's this little clamshell deal. I had to make sure I pointed it southeast and, kind of do fine tuning for the best signal. And I uploaded these photos. It was like like 15, 20 photos. I gave them to my chain of command. They gave them to the S2. The S2 transferred them to their S2, whatever they call it, their intel guys. And it was all documented and passed up from there. So there's a lot of inter-service help. We work a lot with each other. Especially obviously the Marine Corps and Navy. I did a lot of work with the Navy, whether it was Seabees or the SEALs, and I did a lot of work with the Army as well. So yeah, those are soldiers, and that is the story of that.
So
This is actually an Army I think it was a 5 ton that I was in, because the Marine Corps we don't use 5 tons. So I was actually standing on top of the cab so that I could take. And this was only the first layer of those artillery shells. There were, I think, 3 or 4 layers of it within that little
that's
bolt.
insane. I
Yeah.
mean, that's 3 or 4 layers. And I mean, if we're looking at the top right here, just doing quick math.
Homie, there's counting them. Yeah, I mean, he's you can see him.
Yeah, he's
He's just like,
counting.
holy shit.
So, like, I just did a quick count of this row right here, and that's 20 artillery rounds, whatever size that is. And if my math is correct, that's 4 rows plus whatever's back here. So we're looking at what, 90 rounds on the top layer at most. If it's 4 layers, you're looking at 360 plus rounds of artillery rounds. That's insane.
Well, I think that what we're looking at is probably 2 or 3 layers, but it was eventually 4 layers. That and
Whoa.
again, you're absolutely right. It was an insane amount, and I can't stress it enough. The entire operations River Sweep 1, 2, and 3 were looking for this, and we found this constantly. We would find it, have to dig it up, have to stack it up, have to blow it in place or transport it to somewhere where we could, and then pack up and continue looking. And we would walk for another half hour and then have to do it all over again. We'd have to
Oh,
dig it up, stack it up, blow it up, move. Dig it up, stack it up, blow it up, move. That's all we did. And it sucked so much. But as you see, everything there, none of that, you know, it's kind of like may seem hypocritical as a Marine, but nothing you're looking at was meant to save lives. All of that was meant to take lives. It was meant to take my life. It was meant to take the lives of my fellow service members. So I was happy to get rid of it. And it's yeah, it's astounding how many. I helped them carry out those shells as well. I was working just as hard as they were, but I had to document it at the same time. So I helped them carry and then move some out.
how much does that? How much do you think one of those rounds weighs, if you recall,
About
man?
20 pounds. Yeah. I mean, they're 20, 30 pounds somewhere. They're pretty dense. They're really heavy. You get tired after carrying quite a few of them. So artillery guys, that's why they're always these big corn-fed dudes. But I mean, they're pretty dense. They're really dense. They're solid steel with a bunch of stuff inside of them, whether it's
Man.
HE or whether it's armor piercing.
Well, and like you said, this is meant to kill.
Yeah.
This is not used for any good reason whatsoever. So please tell me you got to watch this pile of ordnance get buried and blow up.
I did not. No, I took these
Um,
photos. I took these photos. I have no idea where these guys even took this stuff. I don't know what they were doing. As I said, I came in the Bradley, took these photos. I sat there with their some lieutenant, and I don't know their platoon structure. I know their rank structure. I don't know their platoon. Because like a E7 has the same job as like an E3, or I mean,
right.
sorry, not an E3, but like an E5 in our. It's different the way it works. So I sat with some lieutenant. And I uploaded everything. He sat with me while I did it to make sure it got to where it was going. And then I had an Iridium cell. Well, he had an Iridium satellite phone. So I actually was able to call Al Assad and say, "Hey, did you get everything?" I got confirmation. They said that they were transferring it. I told the lieutenant, and he was like, "Get back in the Bradley. Thank you. See you later." So they said they took me back, and they were like, "Okay, hop out." And I got out in the middle of the desert, and they were like, "Your unit's over there," and I was like, "Over there." And they were like, "Yeah, over there. Just walk that way. You'll be fine." And again, I was like, "Are you shitting me? You're in a fucking tank. You could drive me over there." But yeah, again, I walked for like 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And being those times, there were a few of these times that happened to me where I was completely alone in the land of the oldest civilizations known to humankind. I was walking through the middle of nowhere in Mesopotamia, with no one around me. Just like no matter where I look, there's just sand, It was really kind of amazing. it was a really good feeling. I felt doomed, definitely. Like I felt kind of like, oh my God, this is pretty freaky. I'm at nature's whim here, but it also felt very human, and I felt kind of at one with the ancientness of this place, I guess, in a weird way.
Man, well, to speak of the oddities, like historically driven, think about the
Mhm.
legionnaires that walk through there, with
Yeah.
that same mindset that you might have had, or the vast Islamic armies that get raised in the period when Islam comes on scene, very SP through the Crusades or not, dependent, but just the amount of soldiers that have marched, fought, died there, or being like looking like go this way, they're over there, and then
Are you
save
shitting
you,
me?
just 1,000 years before, you're like shit,
Well,
this is
as a
me.
historian, you'll be interested in. We did find a lot of ancient in the middle of nowhere, especially between Walid and Trabeel on the Jordanian and Syrian borders. Really just ancient. I found one, it was a spring, a natural spring, and there was a cylindrical building with a dome, and it looked just like sand worn. It was sand colored, worn out, and outside of it was a statue facing the entrance. And it was a lion's body with a woman's head, and it had breasts. But it was so sand worn, I couldn't really make out the face or anything. It had a face, but I couldn't make it out. Anyway, it had wings as well, just this beautiful statue. I mean, it's thousands of years old, obviously. And so the cylindrical building had one opening, and you walk inside, and there's another wall that kind of curves around. So you're walking through a curved path, and then it opens up to the actual spring. And inside, there was this mosaic. Like everything was mosaic. It was a tiled, little small tiled mosaic, blue and white, just the most beautiful ancient thing I've ever seen in my life. The walls were the tiled mosaic, and it went up in a dome, and there was a hole at the ceiling with a little bit of light coming through. And there was no water in the spring whatsoever. It had long since dried up. But the building was shit, but the interior was perfect. It had been remained untouched for however long. It didn't fill with sand because the entrance and the way it was made, it curved around the body of the building, and you had to go back in. So any architects listening, this is good advice, because that was just so neat. And the
Man,
interior was just beautiful. So yeah, I mean, I did see a lot of really ancient things. But the majority of it was nothing. I just saw nothing. Um, yeah, that was the majority of it. There's just sand out there. So to think of every single army that's passed through there and how many of them died passing through there, just from nature, it's yeah. Anyway, it takes me back to Ozymandias, man. And it really makes me think about like what used to be there and how there's just absolutely nothing in this place now. But so many people have fought and killed and died over that place, including myself, apparently.
man, well,
It's
you
a
know,
trip.
you think about that, and I was like telling my students this the other day when I'm trying to get something out of my dog's mouth that he shouldn't have. I'm gonna keep talking while I go snatch this little asshole. But speaking of Mesopotamia, that part of the world, and how many people, like you mentioned, have killed, just due to warfare, but in many ways have killed in the name of a religion, in the
Yeah.
name of the God that they believed in, for so long. I
Well,
mean,
everyone I fought was doing that. Yeah.
and it's mind-boggling how we like to think thousands of years ago they were doing this in the same way, and not in the same way, in the same way they're doing that today. You know, Crazy.
A lot of the guys I was there with, a lot of Marines, a lot of soldiers, they're very much crusaders. You'll see them with their infidel tattoos, and it's not ironic. I mean, they're there for their reasons. Every single person you see in these photos, every single one of them enlisted for a reason. They didn't all go in for college. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to get in depth with that, but like I said before, I met some of the best people in the military. I met some of the worst people in the military. So I'll leave it at
Well,
that.
and to leave it at that, and to go into the next photograph here, clearly this is one of the interpreters I assume that you work
Mm-mm.
with. Oh, it's not. Oh,
That's an Iraqi security forces soldier. Before the Iraqi army was instituted after the election for the Constitution, That's when they became the Iraqi army. And before that, they were the ISF, the Iraqi Security Forces, and he was one of the recruits. So yeah, he's actually this is in Hit, and he is one of the ISF recruits. Well, not recruits. He's a soldier, I guess, but
So, with your time with the ISF, were they reliable? Were they trustworthy?
I mean, most of them would enlist, get their first paycheck, and fuck off. They would disappear like we would never see them again. So, like, yeah, were they reliable? The ones that hung around, they believed in a cause. It was probably, and I don't mean anything against these people at all. Even the ones that fled, I don't care why they did it, and I don't blame them at all. But I would say only about 25% of the ISF, not IA, but ISF recruits, believed in a cause, believed in what we were doing, wanted to be a part of what was the American push through Iraq. And I
I'm gonna
guess if
grab a
you
drink. Keep talking, brother.
yeah, if you want to be a douche about it, you could call it the liberation of Iraq. But these guys, they most of them were just really poor. Their jobs had been, compromised and whatever because of the American invasion and the occupation, and they didn't have anywhere else to go. They didn't have money, they didn't have food, they didn't have shit. So would enlist, get however much in American dollars, and then just disappear. They would use their pay to get wherever they wanted. Now that said, I would say about 25% of them were actually behind the cause. And I was showing, I think in one of the videos I sent, the one with the Foot Locker, I was showing the books, and one of them had a bunch of writing in it and translations. And those translations were made with one of these guys. I sat with him for about 20 25 minutes, and we talked about all kinds of crazy stuff, but he actually gave me some translations. I showed him pictures of my girlfriend at the time, which she was wearing this shirt that had the shoulders exposed, and he got like super excited about that. And I was I was kind of like, bro, you need to chill. I'm gonna squirt you some water or something. But
Treat you like a cat.
it's like you need to go to Baghdad and get some of that dirty porn they got everywhere. So yeah, but I befriended a lot of these guys. They would cook their own food, and I would sit and eat with them. I'd try to give them MREs, and they would never want it. But they were always, as we talked about before, because they are Muslims, they were extremely hospitable, and they would make sure that I was well fed. They would make sure that I had hummus. They would make sure I had chai. They would make sure I had lamb or goat or whatever they were eating. They always made sure I was fed as well. The 25%. I don't want to like anger anybody because they're gonna be like, hey, our ISF guys just robbed us and disappeared. Fuck you, Kevin. Like our guys were decent for the most part. There were 75% of them that did just rob us and disappear. Whether it was like getting their paycheck and leaving or actually like taking a bunch of gear, whatever they get their hands off and on and disappearing. Um, their country was invaded. Imagine America occupied by a foreign military force, along with like five or six other nations, funding it and supporting it with their own troops. It was a fucked up place to be. So these people were doing whatever they could. I don't fault the ones who came in any more than I fault draft dodgers during Vietnam. It's just they were doing what they believed in, and I don't fault them for it. They were forgiven. These guys, I forgive them. He's just little old me though, so I'm not speaking for everyone, and I can't speak for everyone's experience with them.
Now, to go off really quickly of the good ones that you mentioned, whether they be, ISF, whether they be interpreters, do you know if any of those guys ever made it to the United States?
I know some did. None of the ones I knew did. None of them. They would have contacted me had they. I gave all of them my email address. They all had my information. They knew how to contact me. I wasn't shy about it. There was always already a price on my head. Um,
Wait, what?
the, yeah, the Mujahideen had put like out on the internet, there were prices on US military members, and if you type in your name, you can see how much it was. And I was like, it was only like 20 grand for me because I was an intelligence gatherer. you can see U.S. Army photo by Corporal Kevin McCall. Well, they can find out who Corporal Kevin McCall is. I mean, especially now, oh my God, like our video, just being up there, gonna know who I am. So back then, there were just it was probably easier to find out and dox people because the internet was the wild fucking west. There weren't the restrictions there are now. So you could actually use LimeWire to access people's temporary internet files. You know what I'm saying? Like it was nuts. So
Man.
yeah, they found out who I was pretty quickly, as well as my fellow combat cameramen. My whole team of four, with one staff sergeant. That's a whole other story. We all had the four of us had prizes on our head. He didn't. but but we did. And so yeah, as I said, it was 20K each. So if a Mujahideen member were to kill us, they would get 20,000 American dollars. I never understood why their payments were like negotiated in American dollars. Like, why are they getting USD for killing US Marines? I think there's a lot to that. There's probably some conspiracy theories about it. But anyway.
Kevin, that's gonna be good for the podcast is the conspiracy theories right there.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a fun thing. Well, and to build off of that photograph we were just looking at, this is the one that I told you that I was actually super curious about. One, I can't read Arabic. I have no idea what this means, and I'm sure that you can give some insight here. But so what is this?
That says, "Long live the Mujahideen." It's in Haditha. The Mujahideen was trying to take over a neighborhood, and I took this on patrol. That's my flashlight. I had a flashlight up trying to, because it's obviously nighttime. And yeah, it just says, "Long live the Mujahideen." And if you're a Google sleuth, then you can find more of this photo, more angles of it. And if you look to the left, you could see the adjacent wall, and there's more writing on it. It said a bunch of other stuff over there, but that right there says "Long live the Mujahideen," as far as I know, as far as I can remember. I can't read Arabic either. I can speak some, but I've never been able to read it. I know that this was pro Mujahideen, whatever it said.
So just out of curiosity and with the concept of religion, this is long live the Mujahideen. Was there any profanity that was like fuck the USA or Marines are gonna die if anything like that graffitied around?
I mean, imagine yourself in a holy war. You're not going to be slandering the other side so much as you are promoting yours. And that's what these people were doing. They were defending their holy right. They were fighting the crusade, as we were saying. I wasn't, but they sure as fuck were. Everything they did to us was, I mean, the Mujahideen's existence is religious. Yeah, so, yeah, obviously they were religious zealots, if you will. I'm sorry if that offends people, but there's plenty of religious extremists. I was raised by a lot of them, and I would parallel them to these people. Honestly, yeah, they're pretty
Yes,
fucking nuts.
yes.
So, so they're the ones going out and spray painting stuff about who right now. I mean, you see this, it's the same fucking thing in my mind. They're fighting their holy war, and that's what this was. We would see this all the time. Anytime I would, as an intelligence gatherer, if I saw intelligence, I documented it. This is a perfect example of I never expected to see this photo anywhere. I took this photo and submitted it to the S2. The S2 is who cleared this photo to be pushed out, and I'm assuming, and take this as, pragmatically as you possibly can. I'm assuming that they released this photo for propaganda purposes. We would see that the Mujahideen is making a presence in our territories where we have a presence. So, we could justify our push. And I took a ton of photos like this that were used for exactly that purpose, but also this is to document that the Mujahideen was where we were. So
Well, to build off of the documentation of the Mujahideen, I'm gonna try to get through this without laughing. Did you ever find any documentation of Wagner outside of the
Well,
any
I did.
patrols?
I mean, so I have photos somewhere. I think they're on. I keep showing you this
Yeah.
external hard drive. I'm pretty sure they're on here. I have photos of a lot of graffiti that I made throughout because I made a bunch. Um, and usually it was about goats, and Girl Scout cookies because we were getting fuckloads of Girl Scout cookies donated to us all the time. I don't know if like every church decided to just dump their money into Girl Scout cookies and send it to us in Iraq. We would have preferred socks, but Girl Scout cookies were good too. But there were always the lemon ones, and I didn't like them.
I
I
was
wanted the
about to
Samoa.
ask,
The
are y'all getting
Samoas.
Samoas, dude?
Oh, they're
No,
not called Samoas anymore. They're coconut something.
but they slap. That's the best
We
one.
gotta watch what we say. But the Samoas were the best. They would have melted though. You know, it was 110 degrees no matter what
That's
you
true.
carry. It has to be like shortbread cookies. So we had the Lorna Doone shortbread cookies out the ass. And I would write about Lorna Doone. Fucking Lorna Doone is written in Sharpie marker on so many buildings in Iraq. It's not even funny. Like I put that shit everywhere. Anyone who went to Iraq knows about Rippets, knows about Lorna Doones, knows about the Nutri-Grain bar. You know, we have our little. That was one of them with Lorna Doone.
Generational.
But man, on Lorna Doone, they're really good shortbread cookies. Shout out to them. I hope they send me some free stuff. That would be really cool. I like them.
Hey,
I liked them back then. I like them now. I wrote some really, really profane graffiti about Lorna Doones
that's neither
and
here nor
Lorna
there.
Doone herself. I'm assuming, like I don't know who she is, but I wrote about her.
So, it's funny you say this because after our book hopefully becomes a success, and the podcast, we take that funding and we go make a documentary of retracing Kevin's footsteps through Iraq. And halfway through, we stop, and there's your graffiti still on a wall somewhere. It's so
That
sitting
was my
there.
favorite. My favorite was no beer, no weed, no whiskey, just goats and cookies. I wrote that. I wrote that in so many places, and I would just write it everywhere. Like no beer, no weed, no whiskey, just goats and cookies. So
That's the title of the book.
if you're talking to an Iraqi person, they don't talk about like beer or rum or like whatever liquor you can list. They just call it all alcohol is whiskey to them. They just call it all whiskey. So that's what I was referring. There was no beer, no weed, no whiskey. No whiskey means nothing else. And then there were goats every fucking where and cookies, the Girl Scout cookies. They were just I mean, they piled them on us. We had Girl Scout cookies everywhere. I ate so much sugar. I mean, like every other war, they probably had great teeth by the end of it because they were eating grain and whatever else they could get their hands on. But I was eating a shitload of Girl Scout cookies and Lorna Doone sugar cookies. So yeah, we had a
You are
lot.
a dentist dream come true.
I would absolutely love, I've seen a lot of photos of present day Iraq and the places that I was and how much it's changed and how modern it looks. I would love to go back and visit a place like that. At the same time, I'm kind of scared too because like of, just the presence that I brought along with me last time I went to that place. I feel like a curse isn't the right word, but for lack of a better word, I feel like I would be bringing back a curse. You know what I mean? Not like I'm cursed or they're cursed, but I would feel like I would be creating one just by going back to a place like that where no matter your politics, we can look at it now in 2025 and completely acknowledge that it was unjustified. We shouldn't have been there. Nothing that I did mattered. All of these stories I tell, the culmination of all of them was we abandoned this country. We just left. We didn't do any of it for any reason whatsoever.
That's right.
So it's kind of, yeah.
Well, I
Sorry.
mean, and I don't never apologize, brother. Like, because it's you hit the nail on so many heads, and I'm not going to speak for all the vets out there. I'm not going to say that that's right. You people educate yourselves. You make your own conclusion on what happened in Iraq. Kevin has his statement. He was there. If anybody has the right to say what it was like, he sure as fuck can, because he was there. I didn't go. I didn't spend the time in the desert there. That's not my place to say.
That said, I thought my entire existence in the Marine Corps was to fight for your constitutional right to have your opinion. You can
Hey,
disagree with me all you want, and
looky here.
that's what I was there for. So,
And we love to see that, first of all, to be able to reflect and have that kind of maturity. Kevin, I raise this toast to you, my friend.
Hmm. Cheers.
Cheers. Now, you know, going off of the original statement of this graffiti or of your own graffiti, there's a chance somebody watches this at some point, tomorrow, a year from now, goes through photographs and is like, yo, I took a photograph of this graffiti right here that says no beer, no weed, no whiskey. This is the guy. This is the guy who
Just
started it
goats and
all.
cookies. That was all this guy. Sharpie marker. I wrote it in ballpoint pen. I carved it sometimes, on walls of bombed out houses. I put it in a lot of places. And I was telling you before about my friend Lou, Lou Juice and me. His name's I'm sure you blank it out for whatever. His name's Lucian Friel. He's from Boston. He's a Boston dude. Really weird guy, bald guy. Yeah, like shaved his head. Lucian Friel, we called him Lou Juice, but he is the one who I came up with that with. It was like him and me both. Like, so we came up with no weed, no beer, no whiskey, no just goats and cookies. We came up with that together. And I think I told you about making the videos of the band and everything.
Oh
I've been
yeah.
trying to find them online. They're out there somewhere. I'll find them. If someone else that sees this can find the blood through the window videos, that's what they're called.
Well,
But
we gotta get Lou on here.
Yeah, Lou's on Facebook. He's on Instagram too. I'm sure he would absolutely love coming on here. And he and I,
Um,
we went through the entire invasion of hit together. So he and I, I hadn't talked to him in probably like I mean, like 20, 18, 19 years. And I saw him on Facebook one day and I started, messaging him and it was like we picked up where we left off. You know what I'm
man,
saying? So I'm sure if you got him on here, like we did a three-way little video call, you would get some good shit from him too. Cause he's a really smart guy, very intelligent, very put together. And he was public affairs. So, a lot of public affairs guys will disagree with me on this, but their entire job was to create propaganda. And that sounds, propaganda, the word has a stigma to it,
it
but
does.
it shouldn't. It should in some ways. We should all be aware of it and, use our fourth grade critical thinking skills to, yeah, honestly, that's the fucking skill people lack apparently these days. But we should use our fourth grade critical thinking skills and kind of look through the propaganda. But propaganda will always be an important aspect of any war. If you think about, John Bassilone coming back to sell war bonds, that
Yeah,
was propaganda. That's exactly what it was, and it's good. I mean, it's not always a bad thing. It's not
correct.
always deception. It's not always misleading. It's just, hey, this is how great we are. Let's focus on these heroes, and this is who we should support. So, you know, yeah. So Lou Juice, he was a public affairs Marine. He and we attached together. Whenever I've met up with public affairs guys out in the field before on operations, I don't always connect with them and I don't always stay with them. I'll usually go and do my own thing because fuck those guys. They'll see that I'm going on a patrol. Don't put this anywhere because I'm talking shit. But they'll see that I'm going on a patrol and they'll be like, well, I'm not going to go on the patrol. I'll just ask him for his photos. And they'll write a whole story about the patrol that they weren't on and ask me for my photos. And I'll be like, okay, here you go. So I'll caption and veer in all my stuff, give it to them. They recaption it, reveering it, and put their fucking name on it.
That's
Like
fucked
they
up.
took the fuck so many times, dude. In Haiti, if you look up fucking what's his name, Escobar, that motherfucker stole so many of my photos. And every time I would confront him, I'd be like, dude, why the fuck does your article have my photos on it that says photo credit, Corporal blah 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 Escobar? I'm saying his name because fuck this guy. And he'd be like, "Oh, it's just the system. It's just the way it works." And it's like, you fucking wrote it. Like, it's the way you work. Anyway, this happened constantly. So usually I wouldn't get along with him, but Lou was different.
Lou
Lou
was a
and I
dude.
hit it off on a personal level right away. The guy, every time I would be on a patrol, he would be on a patrol. Every time I was on whatever operation, he and I would link up and we would work as a combat camera team. Which, when two combat cameramen are together, we put out amazing work. If you put a videographer with a photographer on the same operation, which rarely happened due to just, us being spread so thin, we would come back with the most amazing material. And he and I kind of even though he was public affairs, we worked off of each other in the same fashion. So yeah, I would recommend like if you can get up with Lucian Friel, Friel, do it because he's worth it, man. He's a good dude.
All right, so I'm gonna find that. I'm gonna try to find this guy after this. Um, to bring this together, with you calling Lulu Juice, did you have a nickname?
I had a bunch, man.
Oh, dude, let's go to it.
So you're gonna find out a lot of Marines that I worked with don't like me. Like I mean, a lot of people like me. I had a lot of friends. I'm a charismatic dude, but I'm a loudmouth motherfucker. And now, being 41 years old, I'm much more toned down than I was when I was 20. You know what I'm saying? Like I was just this little shoeless hillbilly from Piedmont, South Carolina. You know what I'm saying? Like you dropped me into the real world, and I was just like, I didn't fear it. I didn't respect it. I was just embracing every moment of it. So I a lot of people didn't like me. A lot of people saw that as abrasive or crass or whatever, you know. So you'll find a lot of Marines didn't like me because of that. You'll also find a lot of people do like me, and a lot of people, whether they have bad things to say about me or not, they're going to have a lot of really good things to say about me for the same reasons I would have good things to say about them. So,
Well, to echo off of that, the only thing I have to say about you is that we have a good time together,
yeah.
and I can't wait to meet up in person, dude. That's gonna be a trip.
Yeah.
I
When are you
pity.
coming out next year? What? When?
I'm
Hmm.
hoping in the spring, hoping. That's
Okay.
all just dependent on some factors there, and whatnot. But regardless of the fact, I pity the place that we go to drink and or eat at
I
because,
have the play. I have many places that we will go. I'm a regular at this Irish pub. We're going
oh,
straight
dude, I love a good
there.
Irish pub. Sign me up.
Yeah, they got
Um,
this Irish breakfast that's killer, man.
ooh, man, you
Yeah,
didn't have to say that. That's dangerous.
my treat.
Well, continuing our photographic essay, I thought this was going to go a lot faster. Interlude here. I now am realizing and glad that it hasn't gone a lot faster because I love breaking down these photographs, and I assume this is probably going to take 3 videos, which I'm cool as hell with. But I love this photograph in many ways. One, you got these two Marines rocking camis. You got this guy over here, and I know Marines that served will know this. I know it's essentially like a flight suit that you zip
That
up.
is a flight suit.
Okay,
100.
yeah,
That is a flight suit. Yeah.
perfect. Because I know for a time period, this was the thing in the Marine Corps. The flight suit sort of thing was because I know some guys I've seen talk about it, and a friend of mine talked about it in a brief period, very small window though.
Yeah. It's a very limited amount of people that can wear flight suits. It really has to do with your MOS. In this photo, I was also wearing a flight suit when I
Oh,
took this photo. So I was attached to LAR at the time, Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. It's the big eight-wheeled reconnaissance vehicles. If you are an LAR crew member of any MOS, you are allowed to wear a flight suit, a flame retardant suit. Tankers have their own deal. I'm pretty sure they have a tanker suit that they wear. Unfortunately, I guess the Marine Corps doesn't have tanks anymore, so that's a non-factor. But that guy right there, this is LAR. You're looking at Light Armored Reconnaissance Marines. I was attached to them at this time. The operation I was on at this time, I don't think it's really sensitive to talk about anymore. There's another photo from this same operation of all the kids.
yeah,
I
I
think
was gonna pull that
I
up
think
next.
that's from like a month later, but it was on the same. I mean, I was on this operation for a long time, but it was actually I don't think, this was 20 years ago, so I don't think it's really sensitive information, but I still won't go too in depth on it. But I was basically LAR was tasked with escorting a major piece of gear from Tikrit all the way to Rutba. And I'm not going to go any more in depth on what it was or what we were doing necessarily, but we were providing security. So along the route, we were advance party. We were riding way ahead of the actual convoy with the gear, and we would go through the villages that the gear was going to pass by. We would make sure that none of these buildings had mortars, artillery, shooters, any kind of combatants, anything like that. And what you see right here, that's actually it looks like a house or whatever. If you look at the windows, they're board, they're kind of graded. there's plastic, but there you look at this photo and you're like, oh, these guys are so badass. They're going in there to fuck shit up. But those guys, there were goats in there. It was, you go in there and it's just this family's goats. This is their barn essentially. They would herd them in and put these big kerosene tanks in front of it with those pieces of wood to hold their goats inside. And they would let them out to graze the sand, I fucking guess, a certain amount of the day. So we would come on these little tiny, this isn't even a village. This was like four buildings in the middle of nowhere with one family that lived there. And they had these goats that ate whatever. I have no idea. Um, they cooked their food by burning goat shit. They would get the goat's feces, put it in their oven, and that would be the fuel to cook their food. And it makes the most delicious food I've ever tasted in my life. Like, believe it or not, it's really good. But that's all this is. This looks again, like I said, most of what I put on, what most of my photos were nonsense. They were just, day to day. And that's exactly what this was. This looks like hardcore, but I guess that means our day to day was hardcore. I'm not minimizing it. I'm actually maximizing it because this is what we did every single fucking day. We would go through and clear buildings. We would have our buttholes puckered. We would have our adrenaline running. We would be ready for whatever came because it did come often, but only about 25% of the time. So,
Well, to go off of that, this photograph, as people or Marines would say, it fucks. Like realistically, this is a hardcore photograph. If you have no idea the context, these guys are about to swing through this door, start some CQB, and whoever is in that room is about to get the absolute worst taste of Marines war.
man.
But no cookies.
None at all.
So,
Oh man.
dog, for today, I'm gonna have pull up two more photographs
Okay.
that, in my opinion, I think would be a great way to end today. Because, dude, for the photographs you showed, you said that they're not a lot. We've spent almost 2 hours talking about what? 8 photographs? That's
Yeah.
dope. I love that. Um, but you talked about the kids, and this is a great photograph in many ways that just shows, youth, happiness, like kids being kids. And so what take us through, what inspired this photograph, the background, and just what's going on.
So if you look in the background there, this is on that same operation like I
Yep.
was talking about, where we're on the security detail essentially for this convoy. Those are LAVs back there. Um, the one you see right there, it's got a big fucking cannon on the front of it. It's the Bushmaster. So 25 millimeter Bushmaster cannon on the front of it. That's a typical LAV. The one I was in was typically the logistics LAV. We call them pigs. That's the nickname for them is pig. So I'm gonna refer to them as pigs from now on. But that's a 25 millimeter Bushmaster pig. I think the one you see back there is actually the Intel pig. That's the one with the radio operators and the Intel guys would be inside of that one. Then we also had the logistics pig, which is a kind of a flat top, and it has these two hatches that open outward, along the length of it, and they open outward. And that's the one I was riding in. That's where the corpsman would be, and the actual the platoon sergeant, I guess you could call him, for their entire stick of LAVs would be in the logistics pig. So when we came to this village is called Akinshat, which a lot of Iraqi veterans are probably laughing right now because of Akinshat. It's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you have to ride 3, 4 fucking hours in a convoy to find this place. It's like, and then after you pass it, it's 3, 4 hours before you find anything else. These people are in the middle of nowhere. It is a happy photo when you look at it at first. We had given them all kinds of MREs, and I think Civil Affairs group was with us, the CAG Marines. CAG is Civil Affairs. They're the hearts and minds guys. Their entire job is to give soccer balls and coloring books to civilians and make them comfortable with our presence. essentially. So when they see us, they're not afraid of us. They're aware of us, but they know why we're there. And this was one such. We were searching their village, but for this little part of it, we were trying to win hearts and minds. Now, if I know you're controlling the screen, if you zoom over to the right side of this photo, the very far right bottom, go down some, you'll see that's where the women are, and you'll see the little girls. Now, I'm sure you didn't notice at first, but every child in this photo that you see waving and smiling is a male. That's where the women were. That's where the girls are. They're covering themselves. They're sitting on the ground, hiding themselves. I'm not insulting any religion whatsoever. These people are Bedouins. They're essentially out in the middle of nowhere, just like the people in bumfuck mountains of Alabama. I parallel them. I do. Because this is a happy photo when you see it. You're like, oh, these kids are so great. What's going on here? This is awesome. Until I point out the fact that all of the young girls are right there, sitting on the ground, covering their faces, not taking part in any of the celebration, any of the happiness, any of us giving them soccer balls and coloring books. That's their existence right there. So I found this photo and it was really profound to me because I remember as a young 21-year-old seeing this and experiencing this and taking this photo. And I also took photos in the series of the women sitting there not participating and not being allowed to participate. That's their entire existence. And it's really fucking sad that indirectly we perpetuated this by creating a vacuum where there was control, there was a government, and we got rid of it, and religious zealots took over. And that's another parallel that I'm not going to mention for obvious reasons. But this is a happy photo. You can see the kid with the MR8 pouch on his fucking head, and it's just like, ah, what a goofy little bastard. Do you see that? And I'm being the white guy, I'm going to go ahead and say, do you see that honky ass kid to his left? So near Ackenstadt was a place called German Village or Germantown. I'm sorry, Germantown, where at some point Saddam contracted a German company to come in and build whatever. So when they came in, they had an entire town built for them. And they spread hey, look at that kid. I don't need to say anymore. You know what I mean? If you go
Blonde hair,
down,
blue eyes.
yeah, if you go down to the left, you'll see another little like a little Aryan looking Look at that. Come on, you know what I'm saying? So, there was Germantown. Now, if you go over to this kid in the bottom right, there was also Koreatown. No, no, to the right some.
Oh, 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 oh.
Yeah, to the right. Yeah, right there. There was also Koreatown down the road. And the Koreans were also a Korean company was contracted to come in and build whatever for the government. And they settled there for however many years while they were doing the work. And then they left. And when they left some stuff behind. And we saw a lot of it. Like you see these little white kids just running around the middle of Iraq.
My while you're getting up, of the happy kids sitting here, emphasis on that. My favorite one is probably this kid right here wearing this helicopter t-shirt. Because
Was it
that's probably me as a 5-year old in like
junk bomb?
1999. Yeah, dude. And it's
Yeah.
like, you made things hit home for me. When is this photograph taken? 2005, 2006?
Oh, five, yeah.
Okay.
This was May 5th. Oh no, I'm sorry. The 18th of May, 2005.
So, not to make you feel old or myself, I was 11 years old.
Mm.
And, I think of myself, and let's say that the roles are flipped, and this is a photograph taken of me and my school and my community by an occupying force, and our customs in America. And, I think of the playground and the field that we all played in fifth grade at the elementary school that I just saw this weekend when I took my grandma, to go get her groceries. And, all kids were allowed to play. All kids, regardless of their their sex, were allowed to do whatever they wanted to during recess time. And everybody played. You know, the girls and the boys, we played kickball, basketball, soccer, football because we were kids and we didn't care about the gender of the individual. It was like, hey, let's play and let's hope that we win. And you bring up a great point that I did not notice until you started talking about it, is that, if on a skim or a quick analysis, this is a happy photograph, but in reality, it's only happy for a portion of the
Yeah.
photograph. And that's the sad truth of it.
A lot of people look over it. Now, I'm not trashing Iraq or Muslims or any group of people when I say this, but I saw some really questionable human rights offenses while I was there. The first one that comes to mind was before this photo was even taken. I was new to Iraq and I was on my first foot, one, not my very first, but one of my first foot patrols. And I was walking and I remember I was on the left side of the tactical column. So we were in a staggered column just walking down the street and I was on the left side and I heard giggling like hee, and I looked up and there was probably like a 9 foot tall wall next to me. And I looked up and there's these girls wearing their hijab, and then they have burqas on. So, I could only see their eyes looking over the wall, but it was four girls. And I could see that they were young. I got crow's feet. I can tell when people are old. So they were young. They were younger women. And this I was new. Again, I had only been in country for maybe a month. And I heard the giggling. I looked up and I saw the women looking at me and the other Marines that were around, and they were giggling at us. Just being girls. Like it's not like a promiscuity thing. It's not like a deviance. It's not, I mean, they were just giggling at us. They saw a bunch of dudes and they were giggling. Whatever. Who fucking cares? But I heard a man start screaming in Arabic. And then I heard, wah, 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 and he beat the fuck out of them. Obviously, I didn't see any of it happen, but I saw them disappear and I heard them getting smacked. I heard them screaming. I heard every fucking minute of it. And there's nothing I could do about it. Like we weren't legally allowed to do anything. That was the law there. That was allowed there. So I couldn't intervene. Just like in this photo you see here, those girls sitting there. Can you pull it back up for
Yeah,
a
brother,
second?
I got you. I got you. Bring that back
I
up.
want to I want to point out one face in this entire crowd because you see this photo, right? I see if you zoom in to the top right of where the girls are, move your cursor just to the right a little bit, back the other way, the other
Oh,
way.
my fault, my
Yeah,
fault, my
yeah.
fault.
If you move your cursor just a little bit and zoom in, yeah, right there, where you were. Keep zooming in, keep zooming in, keep
That's as
zooming in.
far as I can go.
That little girl, right where your cursor is, right now. That is the face I see every time I look at this photo. Every time I look at my photos from the past, I see something like this. But that little girl's face is what I see every single time. Because if you look at her face, you can see how intrigued she is, how much she wants to participate, how much she wants to get up and come over and laugh and joke and put MRE sleeves on her fucking head. You can see in her face that she wants to get up and play. But that was her reality. She had to sit there and watch it all behind the kids who could get up and play, no matter their gender or their sex or whatever the fuck you want to call it. She was stuck back there. And when I see this photo, I downloaded this photo and I gave you this photo so that I could point out that little girl because that's what I see. I think a lot of PTSD or whatever you want to call it. I read Homer's the Iliad and the Odyssey when I was young. I read about the things that would haunt the heroes, and it makes a lot of sense when I see this little girl's face because that's what haunts me. It's the helplessness I feel when I look at her and like knowing that there was out of everything I fucking did in that shithole of a country, like all of the hardship and pain that I brought these people, I couldn't even help her. Like I couldn't make her life any better. And that's what haunts me. It's the helplessness of the people, not so much what I did.
You know, I was gonna bring up another photograph to end on a positive note, but I'm gonna change gears today, and I don't want to end I want to end on that because I think that's more poignant than ending on us laughing about the next photograph I was going to pull up. I want to end here because it's true. This is how you feel, and this is your perspective. And that photograph, for me, this has been my favorite interview we've done so far. And this end has really made me understand volumes and leaps and bounds for a lot of you Iraq veterans that I've never been able to try to make a connection for, that you just helped make for me, man. And I think that's where we're going to end today, brother.
All right, yeah. Just to real quickly add to it,
Dude, add away, dude. This is
like
your
I said
time.
before, we as Marines are brothers. We're sisters, we're fathers, we're mothers, we're cousins, we're daughters, we're sons. That's what you see in this photo. We are them. We're the same as them, and everything that we go through is the same as what they're experiencing. Being on the other side of it, that only counts for so much, seeing what they are going through and experiencing and living what they're going through. That is the things, man, like I said, that's the things that haunt me, what we did to them. Not directly. I'm not saying like we went and did this to them. I'm saying the things that I imagine lingering in their minds. I'm looking at their photo right now of all the kids. The things I imagine lingering in their minds are way more profound than anything that's in mine. I mean, honestly, like this, you look at their existence, look at the background of that photo, there's nothing there. That's their entire existence. It's their town and what we did to them. You know. So that's what Marines carry with us. That's what those of us that are fucking human carry with us at least. Uh I know I probably harp on this more than any other Marine that you've interviewed or that you've talked to, but there are a lot of shitty fucking people in the military, really just bad people. I think we all see right now, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you would agree that there's bad people out there. One side's much more correct than the other, but um, those are the same people that enlist in the military. Those are the same people that treat these kids however they treat them, that have these kids' lives in their hands. So,
Brother, preach, man. I mean, you speak a point, no matter how much we want to hear it or not, it's a reality for us right now in this moment that we, at some point, like you mentioned earlier, have to use our fourth grade critical thinking skills. So we have to come to a conclusion and we have to realize that instead of just taking what we're given and kind of brushing it off nonchalant, we got to start thinking for ourselves as individuals, brother.
absolutely.
And man, Kevin, I did not realize how much of a joy, blessing, and an impact this was going to be, my friend, when we first started messaging. And I am so glad for it. Today when we first got on shooting the shit, I was upset and bothered. And I'm not saying this to be weird, but brother, you made my day. And I appreciate that, man. Means a lot to me. And so, as always, Kevin, I can never thank you enough. But man, thanks for your service and welcome home, dog.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So we will pick this up Friday night or whenever, this weekend or whenever. I've got plenty of free time there. And we will continue this photographic analysis because this has been fantastic
We got
to,
plenty more to go through here. Yeah,
dude,
I'll see if I
I'm
can find more
stoked.
too. Yeah, I'll see if I can find more too. Because we haven't even touched the personal photos of me and my friends.
Nope.
So yeah, we got plenty to go through. Yeah.
Dude, and so I'm gonna try to reach out and find Lucian right now as soon as I get off this and go use the bathroom and see if we can't bring him in for a three-way because that would be sounds like it's gonna be a wild time.
I can almost guarantee that he'll be down with it. You can show it, yeah, send him a link to our interview so
Okay.
far. He would love to fucking see this. And I'm sure, it would be nice because when you pointed out something earlier when you were talking about, hey, Kevin's not bullshit, and here's a picture of a fucking Marine with a PPH. But I tell a lot of people these stories and I get called out, man. I hear Kevin. No way that fucking happened. I hear that constantly. I hear disbelief constantly. So it would be nice to have someone come on to corroborate my stories because I've had Marines that fell under my command, and I've been their mentor in the Marine Corps, and I train them up and I get them right. And one day they'll come to me and be like, "Hey, Kevin, I was talking to this other Marine about this story you told me about Haiti, and he said that, this bullshit that you didn't have SAPI plates, like that just wouldn't have happened." And I was like, "Bro, it was a humanitarian mission in 2004. SAPI plates weren't popular in 2004, let alone a humanitarian mission. They weren't going to waste them on us. And it wasn't until that Marine, my Marine, he was my Marine. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't until he talked to a staff sergeant who was on that same deployment and confirmed what I said that he actually believed me. So if other Marines have a hard time believing some of the bullshit that I say, I understand civilians not wanting to grasp it. Like I fully understand, and I don't reject it. I embrace that on a point because it's a challenge to me to prove them that how ridiculous reality is.
Well, and it's like that photograph of where people are like, nah, World War II weapons, and it's like, no, they were like, this is real. Um, a lot of the guys I've talked to for you GWAT guys have mentioned at some point seeing World War II, Korea era weapons that your grandfathers used. M1 Garands, carbines. I had one guy tell me about a BAR, and he's like, if you don't believe me, here's the photograph. And look, it's a rusty Browning automatic rifle that
I
they
would have
mounted
stole
in
the hell out of that. I would have brought that. I would have got it in pieces and brought it home, man. Every single bit of it. There's no way they would have been able to get that from me.
Man, you and every other Marine,
Yeah.
realistically, I mean, and I can't fault it. And to end out today, though, you mentioned the oh shoot, I can't think of it right now. The
Blue
blue.
Force Tracker.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. And what that immediately made me think of is the funniest thing that made me laugh so hard is when I was at the Marine Corps Museum last November for a veterans reunion that I was asked to attend, is they have a GWAT exhibit and part of it is a commo exhibit. And they were showing like a commo log and it was like just Marines chatting back and forth, commo guys, and it cracked me up. Like because I asked some of my buddies that were commo guys and said, "Hey, how real is this?" And I was sending them photographs and like, dude, this is part of our conversations we were having in 2011. And it was it just cracked me up. If you know, you know. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Absolutely. We got to spend the time somehow, man. Making ourselves laugh is all we got. That's really all we push the envelope. We absolutely do. From these conversations you're talking about just to our call signs on the radios. I fell under Beowulf and Grendel for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it just really there's a lot to it. There's so many layers to the onion that you can peel back and see that Marines are we're not just crayon eaters. We are crayon eaters, but we're actually like pretty like depthful crayon eaters. I'm using a word that doesn't exist just to prove the point of what marine.
So for our viewers, for this final question, now that you've brought it up, I wasn't gonna do it. What is your favorite flavor of crayon?
Oh, green. Everybody's is green. Green, green and then blue. It's the warm earth tones that get taken first. Green, blue, brown, red. And then you go from there. Past that it doesn't really fucking matter. It's like eating charms. You're like it's just gonna make it rain no matter what.
So
So, but if you get a green, you're gonna eat that son of a bitch. Like the green is always gone. It's like as a mechanic and your dad's a mechanic, he'll understand the 10 millimeter socket. It's like the 10 mil, it's always gone. The greens they're just poof gone. And that's exactly it. I'm sure you watched the video of my gear and I showed you the matte pens. That's why we have matte pens, is because crayons just disappear. Crayons work way better than matte pens. I don't know if you know that. I'm being dead serious. They're awesome on maps. But yeah, matte pens, that's why we have them. Green. Green is my final answer.
So, first of all, that's a great tit point to bring up. I'm definitely gonna do an interview where we look at the video and we talk about it over the video. But you might remember this from our Carolina shared experience. Do you remember when they used to make the bubble gum that was crayon bubble gum?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Dude,
I had
people
I
think
had
I'm
crayon
lying.
bubble I had crayon bubble gum. I had what else was there? There was like not glue, but there was something else flavored bubble gum. Oh, they had like six or seven flavors, didn't
dude,
they?
but there were like specifically crayons. Like it was like a not a
Who
Crayola pack because that's copyrighted, but a
who
pack of
made it?
crayons. I don't remember who made it, but it's like the poor kid experience where you go to like the Dollar Tree and that's what you get as a candy.
Well, you get that and you get the candy cigarettes.
Oh,
You
the
gotta have the candy cigarettes, man. Oh, so
and if
you
you
know,
knew you got the fancy candy cigarettes when the tip of them were colored orange, that way they looked like
oh
they were
yeah, I
lit.
remember those. I remember those. Usually they were just white. Those were the
That's
ones I
right,
got. I was too poor for this fancy fucking candy.
man.
Oh man.
Childhood memory unlocked, dog.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
Y'all
Oh,
had this fancy cigarette.
that's the perks of being in the North. We're a little higher than you are.
Oh man, the carpetbaggers didn't hit y'all as hard as they did us.
No, dude, and we at least got the lit
We
candy
didn't have this
cigarettes.
good fancy cigarette.
For those of you from the South, the Carolinas, you will know if you grew up in the 80s, 90s, or 2000s. You'll get it. You just know.
Yeah. Oh, and
Um,
the pop caps, you know, the ones you used to throw as well as the rolls of the red
dude,
strips of caps for
yes.
your pop
So,
guns. Yeah.
oh God, while we're on it, dude, and talking about it, that was my childhood. I remember when we went to Tweetsy Railroad, which is in Boone, North Carolina. Okay. Like a country westernized town. You know, you get the cowboys and Indians. And I remember I shot one of the Indians, or so I thought I did. Clearly, I did not. And that's not politically correct, but oh
Hey, I'm
well.
gonna cancel you.
And I remember for the cap guns though, me and my cousins and our friends, we went through that, but I got a musket. And I remember like the rolls of the caps, I figured out that I could tear those off and make the actual hammer of the musket hit that firing pin to simulate me shooting. Oh my God. I got a plastic garden stake that I used as a bayonet that I put in the end of this thing. And I used to do bayonet charges galore when I was like 10 years
That's
old.
hilarious. I did similar stuff growing up, man. We did all kinds of shit in the woods, you know. When there's nothing around, you got to keep yourselves entertained somehow.
It is, and like we had some video games, but man, we didn't want to play them. We wanted to play outside. Imagination was our friend, and it was our world. And
Absolutely.
for our generation and people that grew up like we did, the world is changing. Kids are
Yeah.
not growing up like that, and to me, it kind of scares me to think about, my imagination. Like me reading books, me playing the way that I did, my imagination showed me the world. I was able to realistically visualize. And it's like now, this is a history book that I've been working through about paratrooper Marines in 1943. Whenever I read through their experiences, I visualize that in my head. It makes me wonder if kids have lost that. Is that a touch that we're losing with reality of the
Yeah.
visualization and imagination there?
I can see where you're coming from, but I think it's very similar to, our predecessors and how they viewed our growing up.
You're right.
The challenge of them challenging the way that we are growing up was very hypocritical. I'll say that. In the same way, us judging kids growing up today would be hypocritical, in the sense that the way they're growing up isn't the same as us. And I recognize how that could be kind of scary and unfamiliar, but the world itself is completely different than when we grew up. So it makes perfect sense that they would be growing up in a completely separate fashion. Um, what scares me, I would say, is how mature they're becoming at such a young age. Having to grow up as a child it was shit for me at 16, 17 years old. These kids 13 years old and having to face the reality of school shootings and all of this crap on the daily, that fucking terrifies me. So when I see them losing the values of the past, I have to really remind myself that they're not losing the values of the past. They're gaining the values of the future. They're adapting to what is right now, and I feel bad for especially Gen Z. They overwhelmingly, the males voted for Trump. And I hate to get so political right now, but it's being raised by millennials. It really surprised me. But I can also at the same time see why they did because of the way people are being raised. I see so many people getting divorces because of some fucking stupid TikTok post. They're getting a divorce because TikTok said that they should be in an open relationship for the woman to be respected, so that they get in an open relationship and their marriage ends. And it's just this fucked up, messed up scenario. And they're always like 25 years old, and I see it constantly. And that's what that's what scares me. It's not that what they're doing, it's that they're being put through that. More than that's what they're doing. They're not responding any more than we responded as kids or the previous generations responded as kids. They are suffering. It's fucking it's shitty that that's all they have to lean back on. They can't lean back on us. They can't lean back on our predecessors. Nobody's here to help them. So I feel terrible for them, and with the current administration and the anti-intellectualism that's being pushed, it makes perfect sense that they would be where they are.
Man, you would be a fantastic educator with this
Mm.
group of kids. You make me honestly change how I view things just because I don't see it from that perspective. And maybe that's because of I'm a little jaded, and I need to open up my mind a little more in some regards. And so, Kevin, I
You
thank you for
you
that,
deal with it
dog.
way more than I do.
Man, nah, dude, but you make an excellent point that I don't think that I have made the connection for. So, dude, I appreciate it, dog. So I'm gonna plan on us tentatively doing photographic study part two this weekend, unless I can get in touch with Lucian, and then we're gonna get in touch with a three-way and see what kind of shenanigans that's gonna bring to us. And dude, I'm stoked. So
I would really love to connect with Lou again. I haven't talked to him literally since 2005, aside from on Facebook
okay,
Messenger. And we probably shared like 5 or 6 messages back and forth. And I kid you not, that was like a year ago. I was in Philadelphia. I saw Ton Tavern. I went and took photos at it. It was really cool. The actual
dude,
location the
that's
sign
some
is.
Marine Corps history and
Yeah, it was
legacy.
it was pretty cool. So I texted him and I told him like, "Hey, I'm here and I was thinking about you." I text my friends often. This is something, for all you veterans out there that are watching this, that I'll say I text my friends that I care about very often, and I say these exact words for a reason. I say, "Hey, I was thinking about you and just wanted to say hey." And that's it. I'll send that to them and just leave it at that. That way they know that someone somewhere remembers them.
Man,
I never get that message myself. I wish I would because God damn it would feel good. But I know how much it hurts to not see it. And I know that when I send it to them, no matter how much they value me or my friendship, or just me as a Marine, that I know that it helps them. So if any of you out there, veterans or friends of veterans,
man,
just say, just send a text out and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. Um, what's up?" You don't have to say, "Hey," you don't have to say, "Hey," more than, "Hey, I'm thinking about you." Just wanted to say, "Hey." Like literally, that's what I send them, probably every 2, 3 months. I make sure to send that to all of the guys that I served with. I deleted my Facebook account probably 2, 3 months ago because I'm sure you'll sympathize with this. Most of my family feels like the issue of interracial marriage needs to be handed back to the states for them to decide. My family voted for this and they support that, and I'm in an interracial marriage. So I cut them all off. I turned off Facebook altogether. I have no reason to talk to these people ever again. They're not people in my mind.
man.
So I Yeah, I'll keep ranting if you don't just cut me off. I'm gonna shut the fuck up. I think I made
So
my point. You understand where I'm coming from, and
you know I do. And to end out today, not just with Kevin, but for those of you that will watch this in part, Kevin brings up a great point of reaching out to your friends, either that you served with or if you are friends of veterans. One of the things I've started doing with my Vietnam friends, my friends of Iraq and Afghanistan, is I text them on their, like their battalion day, if it's like 3-1 day, March 1st. Just an example of like, hey man, thinking of you today, or in general, check in on your friends. You never know when, especially our
Not,
veterans, are
not even
going
just
through.
military. Yeah,
Yep,
everybody. Yeah.
just checking on them,
Yeah.
and breach that connection, whether it's been a few months or a couple days, but you never know what a simple text message can do for somebody, or a simple Zoom call, like me hanging out with Kevin today, can do for me and my mindset today. So, Kevin, I can never thank you enough for that and how you have ended my mindset and view for today, dog. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Hey, dude, thank you. This weekend plan for it. Like I said, I'm gonna reach out to find Lucian, and we're gonna see what we can do with this.
All right.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
sounds good, homie. I'll catch you around.
Yep.
Peace.